morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very exciting segment here today on the 10th day of February. Hi, looking forward to this weekend. This is going to be one huge weekend. There's so much happening out here in Brisbane in this coming days, and we will talk about some of those on the show today. But right now, let's get on with the news for today. First of all, the news in brief, courtesy of ABC.
Departing Sydney this morning to join the search operation in Turkey and Syria, where the death toll from this week's devastating earthquake now stands at above 20,000 people. 4 days on from the disaster, hopes are fading for those who are trapped as attention turns to the millions left without homes and struggling to find food. The first UN aid convoy since the quake struck has made its way into Syria, where years of war have seriously hampered relief efforts, as the WHO warns a second humanitarian disaster is now looming. More than 200 First Nations people have gathered at a meeting in Alice Springs to discuss how to combat rising crime and antisocial behaviour. It follows a recent surge in violence that prompted the Northern Territory government to reinstate liquor bans. Former Cabinet Minister Alan Tudge has announced his resignation from federal politics, triggering a by-election in his marginal Melbourne electorate. An MP since 2010, the news comes 1 week after Mr Tudge fronted the Robodebt Royal Commission to explain his role as Human Services Minister during the illegal scheme. And China is urging Australia to be fair to Chinese surveillance camera companies after reports they could pose a security risk. An audit has found nearly 1,000 of the devices are spread across federal government buildings, from Treasury to Veterans Affairs. The Albanese government will examine their use in the offices of the Defence Department.
Well, there you go. Well, nothing is secret these days. What do you trust? And it's just mind-blowing with all the AI and all these things that are there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's move on and we look at that situation in Turkey in detail.
It's pretty grim here in Iskenderun. Everywhere around this city you see evidence of this massive earthquake and the destruction it has caused. Behind me is just one of those scenes, dozens of apartment complexes that have collapsed down, unfortunately killing many people, and we know that there are still people trapped under here. Some of them are alive. We have been watching today, throughout the day here, as rescue operators try to get to these people. They can hear them calling out, but they're so deep under the rubble, it's extraordinarily difficult to get to them. It's a process of having to pick away with hands and shovels and then remove giant slabs of concrete. They're bringing in excavators to scrape away bits of concrete as well. And it is quite extraordinary the sort of lengths they're going to try and find these people. It's what drives these rescue operators here. We unfortunately did see many bodies recovered here today, but we saw some absolutely just jubilant scenes as well when some people were rescued alive. And in one of the situations we saw today, a woman in her 30s was pulled from the rubble, and there were a lot of bystanders watching this happen, and they formed almost a guard of honour, a line towards the ambulance, and this woman was carried down this line and put into the ambulance and rushed off to hospital. It was pretty emotional, I'm not going to lie, and you could feel that the spirits of people there were lifted so much. One more person they could save, it meant the world to them.
Every life counts, undoubtedly, Alison. Now, what support is being provided to those searching for survivors and also the millions upon millions that have been affected by the quake?
Interestingly here, Michael, today not only have we experienced enormous grief, but also massive anger. There are a lot of people here that say they feel incredibly let down by the Turkish government. They say they haven't seen any government workers here. Indeed, a lot of the people that we've seen around here are actually volunteers, or they've come from other countries. And so they've expressed great anger. It's almost compounding their grief. There was one one man who told us a story of how he was actually buried under a building, and when he was pulled out of that building he was severely injured, but he realised there was no one else around to help, and so he stayed there to try and rescue other people. These are the stories that are being repeated time and time again as we travel around this city. Not only that, people are saying that they haven't received any information or assistance from the government about what's going to happen moving forward. It's not only people who have died in their homes, it's also people who have lost their homes, and there are tens of thousands of them here. Buildings like this have obviously collapsed, but there are so many around this city that have been severely damaged, have massive cracks on them that are, threatening to fall over at any time, and there's no way that those places are livable. So there will need to be a massive demolition effort to destroy those houses. And the question is, what happens to the people who live there? At the moment, they have nowhere else to go. They tell us they've had no contact with the government. They're sleeping on streets, they're sleeping on roundabouts, they're sleeping in gardens, on the floor, on the concrete, on the sidewalks, and it's 2 degrees here at the moment. It's only going to get colder overnight. So these people are building fires around them to keep themselves warm, but it's bitterly cold. It's a bit of a humanitarian crisis. There's no food, there's no electricity here, and there's no real information that they have told us. These people who are experiencing these incredibly difficult situations, they're telling us that they've received no information from the government.
So no information from the government. Well, I'm not sure what the government is doing because, this should be a top priority. Look at the about 20,000 lives lost and devastating news, and look at the condition and the aftershocks, and who knows how stable the rest of the buildings that are still standing are, and when could another one collapse. So the danger still looms there. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone who are affected. So ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our Daily India Report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. India has launched Operation Dost to come to the aid of earthquake-hit Turkey and Syria. India sent more plane loads of relief material, equipment and personnel to the earthquake that hit Turkey. India has sent one more C-17 plane load of relief material, equipment and personnel to the earthquake that hit Turkey. Earlier, 4 such planes with relief materials have already landed in that country. Another C-130 aircraft carrying relief materials landed in Syria for carrying out rescue and relief operations. Indian Army has set up a field hospital at Iskenderun in the Hatay province of Turkey. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said the field hospital will treat those affected by the earthquake. He said a team of Indian medical and critical care specialists and equipment are preparing to treat emergencies. MEA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that it will be a 30-bedded fully equipped medical facility with operation theatre, X-ray machines, ventilators, etc. Sharing details about the ongoing Operation Dost in Turkey and Syria, Secretary West Sanjay Verma said that this was the biggest natural disaster to hit Turkey since 1939, and the Government of India received an email from the Turkish side for assistance in this regard. One more team of 51 rescuers is expected to depart for Turkey for rescue operations. 2 teams comprising 101 NDRF personnel are on the ground. More teams of NDRF are also in reserve, as the damage is extensive across a very large area, and NDRF is prepared to render whatever help India can provide to Turkey in this time of crisis. The death toll from the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria has crossed 15,000 by February 9th morning. Rescue workers have warned that the toll is likely to rise further, with many people still trapped under the rubble. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched a stinging attack on the opposition in the Lok Sabha, lower house of Parliament, on February 8, stating that the UPA rule was a lost decade, while the present one will be India's decade. In a stinging attack on the opposition, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on February 8 said that the trust reposed in him and his government by 140 crore Indians was a protective shield that neither abuse nor false allegations can pierce. He replied in the Lok Sabha to the discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address a day after senior Congress leader Rahul Gandhi alleged that the Adani Group's rise was at the behest of Modi and his government's political patronage. Modi said that the nation's trust in him is something beyond the opposition's understanding. He said, "I have the protective shield of the trust of 140 crore countrymen, and you cannot penetrate this shield with your lies." He added, these 140 crores of people, including the beneficiaries of the free ration program, PM Kisan scheme, Ujjwala, PM Awas and the Swachh Bharat program. Modi said that the opposition has been playing the blame game for long. When the opposition loses elections, they blame EVM. If they lose a court case, they blame the judiciary. If they are probed for corruption, they blame the investigating agencies. This is all what the opposition has been doing. He said that during the UPA rule, every opportunity became a crisis and was a lost decade, while the current one will be India's decade. Modi said that he spent every moment of his life for the people, and this was a time of political stability and decisive government in India. In a major boost to the indigenization of defense equipment, Indian Defence Ministry has signed a deal with Larsen & Toubro for the procurement of 41 sets of modular bridges. India's Ministry of Defence has approved the proposal for the indigenous manufacture of 41 sets of modular bridges for the Corps of Engineers of the Indian Army, giving a major boost to the indigenization of defence equipment under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. According to the ministry, these game-changing bridges have been designed and developed by Defence Research and Development Organisation and will be produced by Larsen & Toubro as a DRDO-nominated production agency. The contract for the procurement of modular bridges was signed with L&T on February 8, 2023 at an estimated cost of over Rs 2,585 crores. The ministry said each set of modular bridge shall consist of 7 carrier vehicles based on 8x8 heavy mobility vehicles and 2 launcher vehicles based on 10x10 heavy mobility vehicles. Each set shall be capable of mechanically launching a single-span fully decked 46-meter assault bridge. It added the bridge can be employed over various types of obstacles like canals and ditches, with quick launching and retrieval capabilities. The equipment is highly mobile, versatile, rugged and capable of keeping pace with wheeled and tracked mechanized vehicles. The modular bridges will replace the manually launched medium girder bridges that are currently being used in the Indian Army. The new modular bridges will have additional advantages like increased span, less time for construction, and mechanical launching with retrieval capability. The procurement of these bridges will give a major boost to the bridging capability of the Indian Army on the Western Front. The project will showcase India's progress in designing and developing world-class military equipment and pave the way for enhancing defense exports to friendly countries. The Reserve Bank of India has announced that visitors to India from G20 countries will be given access to use UPI payment system for payments in India. In view of the expected increase of foreign delegates including NRIs and PIOs visiting India for the G20 meetings, the Indian Central Bank, the Reserve Bank of India, has allowed visitors to India to have access to Unified Payments Interface UPI to shop in the country. Reserve Bank of India Governor Shaktikanta Das made this announcement on February 8. Only visitors from G20 countries will be allowed to make UPI payments, and only those arriving at certain airports. Das said UPI has become hugely popular for retail digital payments in India. It is now proposed to permit all inbound travelers to India to use UPI for their merchant payments while they are in the country. To begin with, this facility will be extended to travelers from G20 countries arriving at select international airports. With India holding the G20 presidency till November, foreign delegates have been invited to multiple events in the country. UPI is a popular instrument for electronic payments in India. In the past 6 years, there has been a massive jump in UPI transactions. In December, UPI transactions touched a record high of Rs 12.82 lakh crores. Last month, the government announced that Indians in other countries would be able to access UPI using their international mobile numbers. Indian overseas will be able to make UPI payments by April 30. Non-resident Indians, NRIs, in 10 countries can access UPI services for transactions without having to depend on their India phone number. The countries are Singapore, the US, Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE and the UK. The much-awaited trailer of South Indian superstar Dhanush's bilingual film, Sir, has been released. The bilingual film will release on February 17th. South Indian film superstar Dhanush's upcoming film, Sir, is easily one of the most awaited films among movie buffs. It stars Dhanush, Samyukta Menon and Samudhi Rakani in prominent roles. The cast and crew launched the trailer of the film at an event. Dhanush, Samyukta Menon, Venki Atluri, Naga Vamsi, Hyperadi, Yuvraj were present for the trailer launch. The trailer starts with fast cuts and thumping music. As Dhanush steps into the college, there is some light-heartedness making way for comedy and romance. Mastaru Mastaru song is breezy and establishes the characters' bonding in the film. The stretch with Samudhi Rakani adds a serious tone to the film, followed by Dhanush's action to bring the change. The trailer suggests that Dhanush is playing a role with multiple hues. It shows him in a playful avatar, and as the plot thickens, he is seen fighting for a greater cause. He is seen as a teacher sent to a government school as a part of an upliftment program. The elements such as comedy between Dhanush and Hyperadi, the chemistry between the lead pair, the fight with Samudhi Rakani are creating a positive vibe for the trailer. The novel concept of educational reforms makes Sir the most sought-after film. The bilingual is helmed by Venki Atluri and produced by Naga Vamsi S. and Sai Sujanya under Sithara Entertainment in association with Fortune 4 Cinemas. Sir is gearing up for a grand release in Tamil and Telugu on February 17th. That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you, Simran, for that report. So, ladies and gentlemen, right now, let's take a look at what's coming up this weekend. And here's a sneak peek of Salame Ishq.
यार बीरबल, सलीम तो अनारकली को भूल नहीं रहा, तू ही भूल जा उसको।
महाराज, अनारकली को तो भूल जाऊं, बट उमराव जान को ना भूल पाऊंगा ना।
तो देख ले, अगर तू नहीं भूला तो तेरी सैलरी काट लूंगा।
वो तो कभी मिली नहीं महाराज, कब दी आपने?
मेरे फाइनेंशियल सबके सामने डिस्कस मत कर। 11 तारीख को बताऊंगा तुझे उमराव जान किसको मिलती है।
वो तो इनसे पूछ लेते हैं किसको मिलेगी।
चल पूछ लेंगे, पर है कहाँ?
अरे उमराव जान
यहाँ है। उमराव जान,
मेरी जान।
महाराज, मेरी जान।
मिलते हैं आप सबसे 11 फरवरी को। कहाँ?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to say goodbye from this segment. Don't forget that from tomorrow, we begin the new series of new season of Aapki Sehat, a Australian Indian Medical Association presentation brought to you, by the courtesy of Cyril Fernandez. The first episode of this series will kick off tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'd love to see you there at the time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to say goodbye from this segment. We'll see you all tomorrow.